should I keep this as a private evergreen asset, or do I just make it public?
Okay, so there's nuances to this, but for the most part...
All right, welcome back to another coaching episode of Launch Your Private Podcast. Today we have Ruby Lin, super experienced sales coach and creator of the Sales Lab Mastermind. Ruby, we are so excited to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
This is going to be a fun episode. Okay, and we're talking about lead magnets and lead magnets, audio lead magnets that lead to a conversion point here. So why don't we kick off by having you tell our audience a little bit more about your business, kind of who you serve, what you do, how you're kind of positioning with your audio lead magnet and what it leads to.
Yeah, certainly. So my name is Ruby Lin. Thank you for introducing me. I'm a sales coach for quietly brilliant, high-achieving entrepreneurs. I love to call them my goody two-shoes because that's how I call them in my brain. And they're an expert and they're amazing at what they do. They're just not so great at selling it. So I help these people, women, men, develop and master what I call your sales brain. So people are able to double their revenue without having to double their audience. I see that so much. Everybody wants to grow their business, but they're spending so much time and energy on the marketing. And they don't look at, you have a great audience right now. How do you actually convert them, right? How do you have these conversations? How do you look at the opportunities everywhere? And so my flagship program is called Sales Lab. It's a high-touch mastermind for entrepreneurs who are done with really, let's be real, surface level strategies, scripts, and they want to build a simple sales system. They want to be able to do sales their way. And they really want to develop the muscle that is sales because they want to be able to do sales. I call it learn how to create sales in a platform agnostic way. I think, as much as we love being online, we also crave being offline. And when you have these sales skills, when you're able to see opportunities everywhere, you don't need to, spend all this time and energy on the online social media landscape. You can go out, you can go network, you can literally shake somebody's hand, have a coffee chat, come out with a 10K client. I have seen that before. I have done that before. That's what I teach people how to do.
Awesome. All right. This is going to be
Very
fun.
clear.
Okay, so with the private podcast, so I'm curious, let's first start, where is it in the process of development? How long have you had it? Is it, relatively new? That way it just kind of sets the context for the listeners so that they kind of know where we're at.
Yeah, so I'm actually on, I would say, part 2 of the Unlock Your Sales Brain podcast right now. So for part 1, we published a 7-episode limited series, and that ran 3 episodes a week for basically 4 weeks. So the first week had 3 episodes and then 3 more, 2 episodes for 3 weeks after. So limited series, 7 episodes that ran into a masterclass, a conversion event. So that basically finished at the end of January. We had our alpha cohort launch of Sales Lab. And we're now doing the second part 2 of this limited series. And it's going to be a 5-episode limited series. And it's just going to be a continuation, really, of the conversation. The first part of the series was really focused around understanding what is a sales brain? Why is it important? How do you strategically think about and look at your business? So that was really part 1. And then really part 2 is the tactical, the strategy. How do you double your revenue? And how do you sign high ticket clients? This is, part 2 is really where I get into that nitty gritties of let's take a look at how do we actually do this.
Okay, perfect. And the way you're at, so just to clarify too, because there's a lot of different ways that we can do audio lead magnets and private podcasts. And so a limited series is absolutely one of those ways. We've seen other lead magnets where it feels like a little bit more of a mini course or maybe even a little bit more of an indoctrination to working with someone or an experience, kind of a sample slice of the experience of working with someone. And so with this limited series, you're going to keep the original 7 episodes. We're adding on 5 additional episodes. So there'll be a total of 12 episodes. And how are you sending traffic right now to that private podcast?
Yeah, so little asterisks here. I'm actually cutting out 2 episodes from the first part. So it's going to be a total of 10. So it'll be 5 and 5. And right now, I'm utilizing it as that indoctrination tool. So you hit that nail on the head there, Nora. And I've just been funneling people on my Instagram to to my audio. I haven't utilized, any paid ads. I haven't been on any speaking circuits or anything like that. I keep everything quite low tech. And so this was just, I really started this as an experiment just to see, if I liked it, if I want to continue with it, if it worked well for me and just worked well for my workflow. And so far, I really enjoy it. So that's why we're doing part 2.
Cool.
And love that. Love it. And I assume with part 2, the way you've described it, it feels like those are the tactical things that I would assume your ideal clients are probably experiencing. Like if your ideal people are selling, I would assume they're likely selling. I'll use high ticket in quotes here because that means a lot of different things to a lot of people. But if they're having sales calls to sell something, you typically make the assumption that they're selling something of higher value in order to warrant having a sales conversation. And so they're experiencing all the things that you just said. So asking the right questions, having a simple sales system. They're probably, they might not identify as salespeople, but they have to sell in order to, keep up their business alive. Or maybe they're hiring a salesperson and they want to make sure they're doing it the right way or have a system in place before they hire it. Are there any other scenarios, or I guess what other scenarios are most common for your ideal client?
Yeah, so what is really common for my people is they're actually incredible at creating content, right? So they have a podcast, they have a YouTube, they actually have leads coming in and they're converting at 30 to 40%. And they think that's normal. They look at it, I was like, oh yeah, it's a numbers game. That's just what it is. And I'm looking at it and go, baby, you're leaving money on the table here. We can get you closing at 90%. Right. And so a lot of my people, yes, they would describe themselves as more quiet, a little bit more shy, maybe a little bit more introverted. They know they're great at like what they do, but they don't identify as a salesperson. And so a lot of what people say to me is like, oh, I'm just not good at sales. Or a big one is I don't feel confident selling. I'm great at what I do. I just don't feel confident. I worked with a 7-figure entrepreneur, 7 figures, right? Huge business. But she's like, when I have to go in front of somebody and have to pitch, I feel like I forget my name and my throat seizes up, and just like there is just that anxiousness. And really what they're looking for is they're like, okay, I have these people and I want to better convert them on a sales call because I know, number one, I'm leaving money on the table, but also number two, I just don't want to continue churning up here on the lead marketing side of things. I want to just make sure I'm converting the people that I have.
Okay, perfect. So they want to maximize the leads that they already have, like fill the leaks, they kind of making sure we're getting the leaks filled out of their sales funnel.
Exactly. I think there's 2 things. It's filling the leaks, right? It's just being more confident, being more assured, just taking the lead of the conversation. A lot of my people, though they are high achieving individuals, they also identify as having people pleasing tendencies.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not just how do you close a sale, right? But it's how do you lead? How do you lead a conversation? Right? And I always say sales skills are life skills. A lot of what you learn in Sales Lab by working with me through the mastermind, you apply that to life, right? And so they might come in for the sales, but they're coming out with a whole lot of life skills. And I would also say a lot of my people, they're wanting to shift a little bit out of the online marketing space. They're getting tired. They're getting burnt out. They're like, okay, yes, I know this is great, but like, I just want to, go out, touch grass, shake hands, meet people, network, and have not all of their eggs in the online basket. And so I help them develop the sales brain, the thinking systems of how do you see sales opportunities around you? How do you build those relationships? So not only do my people come for the conversion, but also being able to go and to pitch larger businesses, to pitch corporations, to talk to organizations and have those deals as a separate revenue stream as well. So
that makes sense. Yeah. Kind of elevate the avatar, or because, I mean, like selling to a freelancer online is very different than selling to corporate, like corporate sales or enterprise sales is very different. And I'm guessing the approach is important to your avatar, meaning we've all seen like the stereotypical closer, high ticket closer. That's the nicest way I can say that. And so the way they approach sales and the way they connect with the human being on the other side of whether it's the table, whether it's, the Zoom call is going to be very important to them. Meaning, said a different way, your approach to sales, your UVP is very important to them because they don't want to be the stereotypical high ticket closer.
Exactly. And some of them, they may have gotten, I'm going to air quotes, sales coaching from air quotes, pro marketers. And they just feel so bad at doing it. The high pressure, get the credit card on the phone, like all of these things. I had a client come to me once and she was just like, I don't like sales because I don't like selling this way. But she didn't know any other way to do it. And we're like, oh, girl, I got you. Right. And it's very, that very human approach. And I just want to add, I think a lot of people, they don't realize this nuance, but high ticket closers, high ticket closing is an industry that, a lot of these organizations, they hire high ticket closers. Yes. And what I tell my people is their job is not to make your clients happy. Their job is to earn the commission, however they will, right? Their job is to close the deal, earn the commission. That's what they care about. They will use any tricks and tips and tactics in the book to do that. But they don't have to see the client after the close. Deliver. You do. Yeah, you do. Right? And if you show up that way, that client is going to have a bad taste in their mouth and you're going to have to see them for the next 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was on the fulfillment side of that exact closer. So yes, I do. I do understand. Yeah, not my favorite experience, but yes. Okay, that helps a lot. And the reason I'm asking all of this is because when we look at the content and the sequencing of these episodes and the lead magnet, all of these things are very important. So we need to be able to demonstrate that you understand, where they're at, leading with empathy, demonstrating that you can help them, but not only just help them in a way that is aligned with how they want to show up and how they feel like they can and confidently can. So some of what that content is in your lead magnet is giving them some confidence because, as you said, that avatar doesn't identify as a salesperson, may have false beliefs about their ability to sell because of what they have seen or other people have said, or, all of the things that they've experienced. That's the content that's going to help shift those beliefs and build the right emotions for them to be able to say, I can do this and I want to do it this way in the Sales Lab Mastermind.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so right now, how many people have gone through the initial series?
So the initial series, 5 people. I've only opened it 5 spots, and then I'm opening up another 5.
This is the master. Wait, is that the alpha?
This is the master.
Nora's. Okay, yeah. So
that's
5
the
people
alpha.
went through the program, and then I think Nora's also asking about the podcast, is my guess.
Yes, also that.
Oh, yes. Okay, so on average, I would say probably 25 people.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have. For the first 7 episodes, we're averaging 25 people.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the private podcast, because I know you're going to remove the 2 episodes, which is fine, and then you're going to have a total of 10. So walk us through a little bit about, before I can understand how you're positioning it to get people in the door, because I think that initial conversation and the hook is really important. Like, what are we saying that it promises them in order for it to feel like it's alleviating a problem or giving them relief in some way? And then I guess walk us through, maybe at a high level, the content sequencing. And also, I think one of the things you had mentioned in your application was the show notes and how you're leveraging show notes to get, because I assume the call to action is get on a call, like in every, just get on a call. And that's showing up so that we're giving people the ability to get on the call, because your people might listen to one episode and be like, I'm ready to get on a call. And other people might need to listen to all 10 episodes before they need to get on a call. So let's walk through originally just at a high level, some of the content that you're putting out there and the sequencing of that. And then we can talk after that about the calls to action and how you're making the invitation.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Okay, so episode 1, which kicked off the beginning of January, was titled You Evolved, Now What? right? So it's really speaking to people who did a big pivot in 2024. They're on this offer pivot hamster wheel. Like, this is great. Like, oh, I'm bored of my business. I'm going to do a new offer. And then, oh, it sells like, 2 to 3 people. And then, they stop and then they're like, oh, this isn't working. So like they do another offer. And so that whole narrative was you did a big pivot in 2024, but sales are still stagnant, right? And really the takeaway is wanting to create curiosity around why sales and selling is the answer. And this is where I start peppering in this concept of developing your sales brain. So that was really the first episode, right?
And are you going to keep that episode as episode 1, or is that one of the ones that change?
I'm going to keep the episode 1 because episode 2, I'll go over the first 7 and I'll let you know the 2 that I'm going to
Perfect. When you get there. Great.
Yeah. So episode 2 was around 2025 market predictions. Again, we're at the beginning of the year. People love market predictions. They want to know all of the things, right? And so really it's around market predictions for 2025. Basically the show, I'll just read you the show notes, Ashley. It's probably going to be way easier. So we're going to go over 3 market trends to pay attention to in 2025, key takeaways for you to take action right away, and the importance of building a strategy agnostic business, right? So this is really, the first 2 episodes is really planting the seed around what a sales brain is, the idea, the concept of building, a platform agnostic business. So those are sort of the first 2 episodes. And then the third episode is, what is a sales brain actually? The narrative around that is, how do you think about sales? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself differently, right? People that have a sales brain really create sales instead of thinking about it as a lead program. And so for that, it's really discussing the 3 different components to unlock and develop your sales brain. So let me just go in and see what that is.
No, that's good. That helps. One quick thing.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Just before we continue, I want to make sure. So the lead in, usually the first episode of an audio lead magnet is one of the most important pieces of content, because this is where we get their attention and we inspire them to consume the whole thing and make sure that it's worth their while, like let them know. And so in that very first episode, we want to make sure that we're demonstrating our ability to understand, like demonstrating with empathy. We understand where they're at, the problems that they're dealing with. And for you specifically, I love this concept of your sales brain IQ. And I say that specifically because they don't know what sales brain is, but I think if I say, what is your sales brain IQ question mark, be like, I don't know, but I think I'm bad at sales, so I probably should listen to this episode. Like that hook with curiosity might be stronger to lead in with than pivoting, because if they may not have pivoted, that may not be relevant to everybody. And so the other part of this, which is where episode 2 gets really important, I want to draw them in, is I'm telling you, I'm having conversations with friends on a weekly basis in Voxer and WhatsApp. Like, how are people selling in today's market? Like, I've got friends of mine that are business owners that are freaking out about, is this still working? What do I have to change? Is this why my conversions are down? And so I do think there's some, maybe it's not market predictions, but it's selling in today's market or the market in 2025, because that's where they're like, I don't know what's going on, but things aren't working for me. And because of your expertise and your experience, it may not have anything to do with the market. It may have everything to do with their sales brain and how they're, handling their sales calls or things like that. But I just want to make sure it could be just a small tweak, but that first piece is going to set the stage for everything else. So even if you're dropping tons of value, if I can't hook them in those first 2 episodes, they typically won't listen to anything else.
Got it. So my takeaway is switch up the first 2 episodes to just make sure, we're leading with demonstrating empathy, understanding, really presenting the problem at hand.
Yes.
Right. And then hooking them in with curiosity, whether that is like, what is your sales IQ? Right. Or something else. And then really episode 2 is just starting this conversation of just really calling out what we know, the background conversations of people saying, like, I'm kind of freaking out right now.
Yep.
I did 300K in 2021 and now I'm like under 100. What is going on? And so really speaking to how are people selling in today's market? What is working? And then really setting the stage to prime people to listen to the rest.
Yes, because and you may have a proprietary framework or a system or components of what you teach that will help people move, essentially strengthen their sales muscle, which is what you said, right? Like we're helping them strengthen and grow their sales brain IQ. We're going to raise their sales brain IQ. Like that's the whole point of what you help people do. And so if we set the stage that we need to strengthen that, and that's the whole use case of listening to this. And here's why, because and if we can say that by strengthening your sales brain, it is going to help you in any market, let alone our current market. Now they're going to listen to all the things that you're going to tell them and how they have to strengthen it and how they have to approach it. But I have to create that belief that their sales brain needs some work in order for all of the rest of this to fall into place. And then all of your supporting episodes that teach them the how concepts or help them have these epiphanies will be so much stronger.
Got it. Okay. Love it. Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
I wrote the notes down.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. And so with the rest, so I guess with the other episodes that you're looking at keeping from your launch in January, are they tips, or give me kind of a high level understanding of what they are, and do they support that sales brain piece?
Yes, that 100% everything supports the sales brain narrative in the first part, like part 1 of the series. Okay. So episode 4 is actually what to focus on if you haven't hit 100K in your business.
That's amazing. Yep, that fits.
That was episode 4. And then episode 5 was, what do you do when an earthquake hits your business metaphorically? So really understanding like why you need to master the sales skills, because sales is the foundation of your business. And so sales skills is life skills. That's episode 5. That one's getting cut. Episode 6 is listen to this before you drop another 10K on business coaching.
Ooh,
and then episode 7 is a becoming magnetic. So it's the really, the takeaway that is for the quietly confident woman who knows their worth, and she knows this is because she knows how to sell. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who knows how to sell. You can leave the shitty job. You can ask for what you want. You can make money on your own terms. So episode 7 was, really wrapping up like the identity of what my people want, which is to become magnetic. It's the person they're evolving into. So I was actually planning on cutting out the market predictions, because after 2025, market predictions isn't going to be relevant. Right. So I was going to cut out episode 2 and then also the earthquake episode. So then we have episode 1, which will be the hook. Episode 3 is what is a sales brain. Episode 4 is how to make 100K. And then we have listen to this before you drop 10K on business coaching and then becoming magnetic. So those were the 5 that we're keeping.
And I like that. The magnetic piece is important, especially if your people are introverted or they hate sales, because a lot of them may not believe that they have what it takes to come across as a magnetic person on a sales call, because it doesn't quote unquote fit their personality, or it doesn't quote unquote come naturally to them. And so that, like, telling stories in that episode of how you're able to transform. And if you have a couple of audio testimonials from folks that you've helped in your program to say, like, I was the most introverted person. I hated getting on sales calls. I had anxiety attacks every time I did. I really didn't even want to show up on camera. I did sales calls on audio only for years. And it wasn't until I went and did this mastermind for 3 months until, like, whatever that looks like for you. But the before and after in that specific one is going to be important to have to establish the belief that they can become magnetic.
So would you recommend for certain episodes to just drop in audio, like client audio testimonials? So we like, okay, so listen to, Sarah, who went through Sales Lab, and then boom, little snippet. Okay, now we're back, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. Exactly. Say for example, and I don't know if you call them clients or students, but like one of our clients, Sarah, went through Sales Lab. I'm going to let her tell the story for herself, or just if depending on what audio you have, say when Sarah first came to us, and obviously do this all with Sarah's permission, but she was experiencing this. And I want you to hear what she just said after completing her 3rd month in the Sales Lab Mastermind, and then put that in there. So it's all storytelling, but it's not you necessarily telling the story. If you could do it. But if you don't have that audio, totally fine. You just tell the story.
Perfect. I love that. That's so great.
Okay. I love that. So that rounds out the first series of episodes. Talk to us a little bit about what the plan is for series 2.
So series 2 is really around the tactics and the strategies around how to double your revenue. And so episode 8 is your content isn't the problem you think it is.
Good.
Why your brain is locked into top of funnel and how you've created a beautiful prison for yourself, the never ending content creation hamster wheel. So that we're kicking off episode 8 with that. Episode 9 is selling more isn't the answer. Why you need to sell better. So it's really around talking about your sales self-concept, sales hygiene that nobody talks about and nobody knows about it, and then also expanding the opportunities in front of you. So that's episode 9. And then episode 10, which dropped this morning, the exact process to close your 10K client.
Good.
So how do you close a 10K client? And then those are the 3 things are calling out the bullshit, properly bridging the gap, and inviting objections. Because people try to shy away from objections. And I'm saying, no, baby, you got to invite them. So you can talk about it. Because the objections, they'll go away, right? So those are the first 3 episodes that I have. So those are recorded and those are out.
Okay.
Let me just see what else I have planned.
I love it so far. This is good.
Okay. And then we have Sold as a State of Mind, the amazing belief that repels ideal clients.
Good.
And this was actually a belief that I heard in a mastermind where another mastermind person of mine, not in mine, but in the room that I was in, lost maybe 100K in clients because she had this one belief and she lost sales because of it. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Good.
And then the last episode is how to add another 20K this month. Client succession planning. Because a lot of people focus on top of funnel. How do you re-sign your clients? Are you thinking about that?
Yep.
Those are the 5 episodes for this round. And I feel like that's a lot more strong than the first one.
Yes.
Yeah. It's everything that they're going to want. And just whatever you do on the landing page, make sure all of these hooks, like you're going to learn how to add another 20K. You're going to learn, the belief that costs $100,000 in sales and how to make sure you never have it or whatever that is. Like all of, make sure that the landing page is comprehensive from both series 1 and series 2.
Yeah, perfect.
I love this. Okay, so all of these are, it's like value after value after value, which I love. And we're helping them have the epiphany. All of this is anchored in improving my sales brain, like making sure it's stronger and getting my sales brain IQ in this specific way, right? And I think the approach is really important too. So now we have to, I assume are you adding an episode that's an invitation, or is this, how are we actually making the invitation into the Sales Lab Mastermind?
So I verbally say it, and then I like 2 or 3 times during the episode, and then let them know that it's also in the show notes. So
you're always
in
reminding them about it in every episode.
Yeah. So basically for episode 10 and also asterisks here, I only just started to just invite people to do sales calls with me starting this episode, because the previous ones for the past 2 was like, get on a wait list. And they're like, why am I wasting my time getting people on a wait list? Just get on a call with me. So that was a change. Yes. And then before that, for the first part of the series, it was join the masterclass. But then I realized I hate doing conversion events. So why waste my time doing that? Just go on a call. And so this is basically what I said for episode 10. Hi, friends. Welcome to the Unlock Your Sales Brain podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Lin, and I'm here to help you see sales and the world differently. In today's episode, we are going to do a deep dive into the exact process to close your first 10K client. I'll be revealing the top 3 things you must do in order to sign a client of this caliber. Each of these components functions as a power piece within the sales call, and together seamlessly takes your client from I was curious to invoice paid. These concepts are further discussed, broken apart, stress tested for your unique sales process in Sales Lab, my high-touch, high-impact sales mastermind, because it's one thing to know the theory, it's a completely different ballgame when you're in the arena. If you've been wanting to be in the room where you get personalized sales coaching at the highest level, I'm starting to have conversations for the next cohort. If you want in, go on Instagram, DM me the word sales, and we can chat about where you're at and if you would be a good fit for the sales mastermind. This upcoming cohort is going to be epic, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So that's the beginning. And then at the end of that episode, I actually said, because this was all about like, how do you do good sales calls, right? And so at the end, I said, Now, if this episode absolutely blew your mind, please let me know, and I would love to know your biggest takeaways. And if you want to experience what it's like to be on the receiving end of a great sales call, and you also happen to know investing in sales coaching is going to take your business to that next level, you can either DM me the word sales on Instagram so we can chat and assess where you're at, or if you just want to experience how I run my sales call, book a discovery call with me. The link is in the show notes. All right, for next week, we're going to blah, 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 blah.
I love this. This is great. And are you going back to the other episodes to put some of these things in there earlier than episode 10?
Yeah, so I've in Hello Audio, I have the universal footer.
Oh, universal footer.
Oh, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So I threw the, book a call with me in the universal footer. I haven't gone in to verbally change any of the intros or anything like that.
Okay.
But that's kind of what I did.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I have the pro, but I don't have the universal content to change the intro at the beginning stuff.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if you get around to
dynamic
it,
content,
yeah. If you get if you get around to re-recording an episode to add, to add some of these things in there, great. If not, I'm sure it's fine. I think as long as people aren't confused with like giving different call to actions in the audio, like the waitlist or the masterclass, I think that's okay. Because it's a lot easier to edit things out sometimes, and I get that, right? So that's fine. One thing in that last episode, in that script you just read, and I know you've already released this, which is fine. Next time, I would personally say if you closing your next $10,000 client, then first. And the only reason I say that is because I want people who are actually making money, because people who are making money will pay me money. Versus someone who's like not able to get their first $10,000 client. So that's just one note I just picked
and
up.
it could still pull in the person who.
Oh yeah,
it's more open.
Yeah, because even if I haven't closed at 10,000, it's like my next one. Yep, that's my first one, but also my next.
Yeah, I like that.
Works. I really like this. I like the fact that you're not waiting till the final episode to invite people in. I like that you're giving people an opportunity to continue the conversation with you. It's also very conversational in terms of connecting on Instagram. So in the show notes, your Instagram handle, all of the same verbiage that you just read in like the universal show notes, yes to all of that. And then the other piece of increasing conversions is making sure you're following up with email after they get the private podcast with this same exact information. And so typically what we see is you get higher conversions on a lead magnet if you're following up with that email. It doesn't have to be a super complicated one, but an email sequence that ties back to the content in that lead magnet in some way. And what I mean by that is teasing it out, saying, because we've all listened to podcasts where we get interrupted, and I've meant to go back to it, but life or kids or dogs or whatever, and you never get back to it. So if you can tease it out and say, if you listen to episode 4, that get that, what's the Easter egg that's in there, or what's the hint that you can give people to re-engage, and then I'd still have all of your call, like your link to Instagram to book a call with you or that kind of stuff in the email themselves. Because sometimes we need to have those multiple touch points in order for them to remember to take action.
So good.
Yeah. Yes. Can I add to this is for listeners, Ruby's demonstrating something that we've heard other people have success with the DMs. So by offering that DMs, Andrea Crowder does it. Andrea Jones, I guess Andrea's, maybe Ruby's now too. Yeah. We've heard that that's gone really well. I know Andrea Jones talked about specifically actually offering. So this is maybe a takeaway, Ruby. You're already doing that. You could also give them something for DMing you over there too. That's what Andrea does. So she's like, if you want my checklist, or if you want my fill in the blank script, or if you want my XYZ, DM me on Instagram. Now you're getting them over there. So I think you're doing both. I think that's so great. Good. And then the email piece. So it's, and then we have, was it Julie who talks about surround sound marketing, right? Like hit them all the places. If they found you on Instagram, this is perfect to send them back there. They're really comfortable probably seeing you there. And you're just like just keep opening doors right? Like let them come in.
I love it. That's so good.
Awesome. Yeah. We've hit a couple things, but maybe there's 3 or 4 big takeaways from what we've already talked about. But those, I really do think those are going to increase your conversions to the Sales Lab Mastermind. We're getting people, it's increasing engagement. It's increasing people listening. The other thing you could do, and we talked about this on the last call too, is looking at your super listener scores. Yeah. So the super listener score is a Hello Audio kind of lead scorer kind of feature. And so the higher that super listener score, that just means that people are binging your content. That's the fast. It's like they listen to as much of it as in a short amount of time. And that's when the score goes up. And so if you're listening to this and you have the powerhouse plan, you can take actions based on a specific score. So if score equals, above 80, then you could create a webhook and maybe get an alert, and then you send, a personal message to them, or you can send a specific email that's more personal to that person. And that might be, not that you need to add that additional complexity now, but that's something that you could look at later when you're ready to add another layer, just to be able to go after your hot leads. Now, if you've got 20 people in there,
the action
no
you
big deal.
take versus what they take. It's adding, taking action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. So quick question here, Nora, around the super listeners. So you would only actually be able to see that if they subscribe to Hello Audio utilizing like the Hello Audio, like
if they use the unique
sign
link.
up, right?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, if they use it.
So what I mean by that is if you're taking their name and email in Kit, for example, and then you're sending that with it, whether it's Zapier or using our direct integration, with Kit, to be able to send them their unique link. All they need is the unique link. If you're sending the universal link, then you will not see super listener scores. But if you're giving them a unique link, they don't have to use the Hello Audio sign up page to get a unique link. You can still give them unique links, even if you're getting their email address from, other landing pages or whatever else you're getting them. But that's a layer of complexity I would look at when you're starting. Here's when I use that. If you're just looking to increase conversions and you want some personal touch, especially, with certain things like this, personal touch, as you know, makes a big difference. If you have 10 people in it, is it worth it? I don't know. But if you have 100 people in there and you got to figure out how to prioritize your leads, then I want to make sure I'm talking to the right people.
Got it. And so I think for the first round, I did just send out universal links because the priority was more so just get more emails and then selling through email, and then audio was the indoctrination process. And so moving forward, the people that utilize the universal link, I'm not going to be able to see their data, but anybody else that signs up thereafter would be able to.
Yes, that's right.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, each has its own use case. The universal link is nice just to share. And if you don't need to see the data, unique links are nice because it allows you to see who exactly is listening and allows you to take action based on that. So for something like sales, that's really nice.
Got it. I love that. Okay, perfect. And when people subscribe to it for the first time, I think I have mine. I don't remember how I had my set up, but they'll see episode 1 first, or they'll see episode 10 first. Do we know?
It depends. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends on a couple. Yeah.
I have date-based.
I wish. Feed. Yeah. It depends on how they have it set up in their podcast player. So, especially with date-based, it's like a typical podcast. Yeah. Most people have set up to be like most recent. And so if you just drop 10 will be up there. If someone has been with you from the beginning, though, that's fine because they're listening to 1 through 10. But if someone just signed up, it's going to show 10 first. So, when you do something like either instant or drip, you as the creator have a little more flexibility to say like, hey, put it in this order, but it still applies that the person could have their settings on their player to be a little different. So yeah, it's somewhat of a sticking point for us where it's like we can't force people to have a certain setting on their player. And so what we do as the host is we try to force it, and we force it in the way that it's most set up. And so there's going to be those people that it's not. So our advice on that is, number the episodes if you can. That's more important than, in the public podcast space, they kind of say, oh, either way, whatever. And there's even just like mix up about whether or not to do that. But we definitely think if you want it to play in a certain order, numbering it is best because then the person realizes that that's what's going on. And then you as the creator just have to know that like, it's not going to be perfect from their experience, but Hello Audio is doing the best we can to play it in the order. That's okay. Like we're trying to force it, if that makes sense, to play it in the right way for them. Yeah.
100%, Lindsay. I do number all of my
Cool.
episodes, so that's done. And the reason why I was asking was because Nora gave the beautiful suggestion of rehashing episode 1 and episode 2. And my brain was like, well, me doing all that, amazing. But also, like, are people just going to, listen from 10 back?
Oh, yeah.
I would send an email. And so
That's a smart idea.
Yeah, just to let people, especially for people that didn't convert from the January launch, you could say it's been updated. I would start with episode 1, like let them know, tease it out, tell them what you changed, but like don't tell them all the stuff, just get them excited about listening to it. So I would do that. The other thing you can do, and this is not unique link, so you can't necessarily use, but if you're not planning on using the super listener functionality, then this is okay to use. If you want people to just listen, you can always share the full player page or an episode, like a link to that episode. Again, it's the universal link, so it's not like it's going to track that listen for that download for that specific person. But if you just want people to listen, you could do the full feed and, do it that way. And if the good news about that is if you were on Powerhouse, you could probably clone the feed and put it in instant, order and have it from top to bottom on that feed page. And then you could kind of control the order because it's not in a player, it's a web-based thing. But that's something that we can look at. But for the sequencing, I think it would be just as easy to send an email to everybody and say, start with episode 1 and don't miss it and make it a big thing, like why they don't want to miss it.
Yeah, I love that. That is so good. And just to get more butts in seats. I love that.
That's the plan.
Yes. Any tips on just getting more people listening to the audio or just like from the, top of funnel leads perspective?
Yeah, so a couple. I like the organic shares. I think that's really important. So using social for organic shares is good. We do have some of our Hello Audio users that do run ads. We actually ran ads and are running ads to our Launch Your Audio Lead Magnet, and they actually price or per click is actually reasonable. Of course, I'm not going to jinx it. Stupid Meta, no offense. But so that's an option. You could also look at where you're posting to see if you could get additional traction. And you could also reach out to the cohort in January and say it's been newly updated if you ask to share it. Like if you know someone that's struggling with sales, I'd really appreciate you share it and just share the landing page. And I think that's something that you could do. Yeah. Obviously we'll have the link below in our show notes here. So any of our listeners that want to be able to access that private podcast, we'll make sure to share the link too. But I would look at opportunities to get it shared in other people's audiences that might, rely on some of the folks that you've served in the past or guest podcast episodes that you're on. One of the other things I like to look at is if you've guested in other podcasts before, you can reach out to them and ask them to update your links on that podcast. And so just, especially if you're going to turn this into an evergreen and not a launch, ask them to include that link to the private podcast landing page. And you never know, some might not respond, but some might. And that might be additional traction and also good backlinks for SEO as well. So there's that too.
Yeah, these are amazing tips. Thank you so much, Nora. And that's actually a great segue to one of my questions of, should I keep this as a private evergreen asset or do I just make it public? Or do I want to start a separate public podcast?
I mean, okay. So there's nuances to this, but for the most part, if it starts doing really well, leave it private, because what we want to have happen, especially all the tips we gave you, the DMs, the emails, that only can happen if you have their email address. So if you turn this public, and we've had some, users be like, well, I want it to be available for anyone to search, and it's so much easier to send them to a podcast. And it's like, yeah, but then you have no idea who's listening. And like, isn't that the point? Like, especially if you're using it as a conversion tool. So, you're doing all this work right now to make it, it's private. We gave you a bunch of strategies that really are only able to be executed on because they're private. And I would say definitely change your universal link sending to unique links, and you'll unlock way more of that. Because the reality is, I guess that's an interesting point. Because you had it set up as a universal link and it was private, there isn't that much of a benefit. It's just like you have to know that it was there and someone has to send it to you or they have to find it. When it's a universal link, it's private from the database of like all podcasts, but you don't have the benefits of knowing who's listening. So if you flip that switch, you start using unique links, then you can unlock some of the strategies we shared today. But then your other question, like, do I start a public podcast? Like, you have a great voice. You are like really great with your like the way you explain things and your kind of punchlines. You're catchy. It might do well. I'll say this. I love hosting a public podcast, and we tend to recommend people do private first to make sure they like it. And if this feels like your vibe, go for it. A public podcast is not easy. There's definitely, it takes a lot of work, which is why we typically recommend private first. But if you want to make that your kind of, cornerstone content, it leads great because then you can constantly pitch them, learning, downloading the private podcast. And so now you're converting those public listeners, and that audio line just keeps going. That line continues. And that's why it's like, if you kind of like it and you're feeling the nudge, I could see that doing really well for you personally. So I would be open to it, but it's definitely, it can be a lot of work depending on how you set it up.
Yeah, for sure. And that was one of the reasons why I did start with a private podcast, because I was like, do I want to do this? Do I like doing this? Am I going to spend hours editing this? All of these. And then, afterwards, it's like, okay. And I also feel like, I know we're recording, we're going to say it anyways. I feel like I can get away with a little bit more in my private podcast.
Yeah.
Because I just record, and like, if there's any big edits, I will just chop them off. But outside of that, that's all, right? There's no like fancy sounds and intros and outros and shit like that.
And that's the stuff that holds people back in the public show and from doing it. Yeah. And I would say you don't need that really at first either, to be fair. But especially if it's a solo show, just you recording, it's a really great way to get content out for sure.
Yeah. I will add this too. We at Hello Audio, we started with private, like we talked about. Then we added our, this public show, but we still have dedicated lead magnets. We still have it's a very different conversation that you're having with a listener in a public podcast than a lead magnet. A lead magnet is very specific. It solves a problem. It provides relief. It's something that's targeted and contained and specific. And so that is very much geared toward conversion. Whereas the public podcast, even if you're given value after value, like people just are subscribed and there's no necessarily urgency unless you create, like I know when Amy Porterfield had her public podcast, her team, kudos, like they were creating lead magnets for almost every episode.
Yeah.
To download to get. And man, the team to do that, if you don't have a team to do that, that is it's a lot. So just know that even with a public podcast, you're not getting a huge lift from organic traffic. Not many people are in there searching.
Yeah.
They're not searching for stuff. So if you make the assumption that you're going to get more traffic just because it's public, that's not true, typically. And then the other, because even this public podcast, we would look at visibility ads to send people to and that kind of stuff and sending our audience to. So I think that's where, even if you are going to go and do a public podcast, it's still different than your lead magnet. And I would keep the two separate.
You could totally have show episodes, right, that are on the content that's in there. But the sequence, I love the word contained. It's like you create it once, right, and then you optimize over time, but it's contained. Someone can get from point A to point B at the very end and hopefully book a call. But a public show is just open-ended, just you don't know when they're going to listen, what their first episode's going to be, how many they listen to. And it's just it doesn't mean it doesn't work. And, I see it a lot more really recently. Public podcasts for converting your show, converting and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's a form of content and it can work. But the real nitty gritty happens in those, that surround sound that's happening where you're getting all the pieces. You're hitting them with the multiple touch points.
100%. And I'm such a sales coach. I have such a bias for sales that everything that I do, it's how can I make this contained? How can I surround sound them? How can I specifically target? And that just fits with my energy as well, which I think is why I love private podcasts. And I might just instead of one big show that I have to do. I'll just do a bunch of different private lead
And we've
magnets.
seen that work for people as conversion events. Angie Jordan's our example. She was one of the early people that did that for one-on-one work, just like a different topic every month, and just fresh new content, fresh new leads, fresh excitement, and she would book out her one-on-one work from that. So that's definitely a strategy that works too. Yeah.
I need to go check out Angie Jones's episode.
Andy Jordan. Andrea Jones was an episode. And then we have Angie Jordan was a really early episode. But yeah, those episodes on Launch Your Private Podcast are around some of the stuff we covered today.
Oh, amazing. I love that. Definitely have to check those out as well.
Cool. Well, this has been really good. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I have so many takeaways. I think the first one is just updating those 2 episodes, and then updating the landing page is probably my big thing. And then also change the universal link to the unique link is probably going to be the second. And then also just sending out the emails to my people as well, because I feel like that actually really helps just be top of mind, the conversion. But I love what you said about just teasing it as well. Just start with episode 1 again, get a refresher. I've changed a couple of things.
Yeah, there you go.
And also you said Easter egg, but for the first 2 episodes, I'm going to put an Easter egg in there. I'm going to see if you can find it. You get something.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Put a keyword that they have to DM you.
Yeah.
And I would put a keyword that they have to DM you to get it. Like that's because then you're opening more conversations with people.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Thank you two so much.
Yeah,
this has been excellent.
It was so nice to meet you.
Awesome.
Yes.
Keep us posted. Let us know how your May launch goes and how this goes.
Yes, 100%. My private secret goal, which is not going to be private or secret after I announce it right now, is one day to come back here and be interviewed as a success story. Yes.
I love it.
I love that.
All right, Nora, Lindsay, thank you both so much.
Thanks,
I'm going to go and apply all of these learnings.
Have fun.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard. So let's turn the volume up. Until next time.